Gavin Smith was a Hollywood insider, living the high life as a studio executive, but one night he vanished without a trace, leaving behind more questions than answers. Was it a calculated disappearance to escape from reality, or something far more sinister? This is a story of a man whose secrets may have cost him everything. Viewer discretion is advised for this educational documentary. Welcome back to Dark Case Documentaries. I'm bringing you daily true crime until the end of the year, so please do join the quickly growing Dark Case family by hitting subscribe now and dinging the bell. I would absolutely love to hit 250,000 subscribers by the end of the year, but we all have dreams. Thank you also to my supporters on Patreon. This platform is battering small true crime creators right now, so your support is going a long way. If your name is on screen right now, then you're a legend. Let's get straight into today's Dark Case. Gavin Smith was the ultimate Californian man. He was rugged, tanned, with sandy blonde hair. His brother Greg described him as being the type of guy that all the girls wanted and all the guys wanted to be. He was a natural athlete and stood at over 6 feet tall, making him a natural fit for basketball. In college, his interest in the sport deepened and he was selected for the UCLA team, under the guidance of the legendary college basketball coach John Wooden. The team won the 1975 NCAA championship. Thereafter, he played for the University of Hawaii, where he set, and still holds, the school's single-season scoring record of 23. That is 4 points per game. Overall, he was well liked by his teammates. He was known to bring his dog along to games, and he was considered positive, talented, and dedicated. However, when Gavin was not drafted to play professionally for the NBA, he was devastated and even spent a few days by himself in the mountains to cope. After some reflection, he moved back to California, feeling slightly deflated but ready to move on. He decided now to try his hand at acting, and he landed a few bit parts in films such as Glitz and Swinging in the Painter's Room. Still, the acting work alone was not financially viable, so he also started working as a stuntman. On the set of the well-known television series Remington Steele, he suffered a very serious back injury that left him out of work, and eventually this led him to an opioid dependency. As a result, he started waiting tables, and it was around this time that he met his wife, Lisa. Lisa and Gavin had a whirlwind love affair and fell for each other instantly. Only after a few months, they were married, and shortly after that, Lisa was pregnant. They then had 3 boys together in rapid succession. Lisa's brother Ed described the couple's connection as instant chemistry and instantly in love. He also stated that Gavin's family was the center of his universe and he devoted his time to his kids. Things were going well for Gavin in his personal life, and soon his professional career also started to gain momentum. However, it was not in front of the camera as he initially thought. Gavin spent some time working as a caddy at a well-to-do golf club and was soon rubbing shoulders with movie executives. He was extremely affable and driven, and after impressing an executive, he landed a low-level job at 20th Century Fox. He quickly worked his way up the ranks with a can-do attitude, claiming he could learn everything he needed to in 6 months, and learn it better than the people around him. And that he did. After a few years of picture-perfect California living, the family underwent some struggles. Despite Gavin's flashy job, the weight of the housing crisis, and a tendency to live beyond their means, left the family in a precarious financial position. In addition, Gavin's addiction to pain medication worsened drastically during this time, and he was left with no choice but to check himself into rehab. At first, the family believed that rehab would be the key to addressing their issues, but in reality, things only seemed to get worse and worse. Chandrika Creech was a beautiful young woman in her early 30s, and she had checked into the same rehab facility as Gavin to tackle her own issues with alcoholism. Gavin led one of the group sessions that Chandrika took part in, and they became fast friends, and then lovers. Chandrika, however, was also married, so there was a lot of people out there that, if this secret came out, would be very hurt and very angry. Chandrika's husband, John Creech, was a dealer known for having a violent temper and for being abusive. He had previously been charged with an offence for storing large amounts of illicit substances in the couple's home. He pled no contest and admitted to being a middleman. After the extramarital lovers left rehab, they stopped seeing each other for several reasons. Firstly, wife Lisa had found out about the affair, and the couple was now trying to save their marriage. Ultimately, Gavin's affair was boiled down to just another element of his midlife crisis. Supposedly, it was around the time of the affair that Gavin started working out even more than he already did, and started dressing like a 20-year-old to go to rehab meetings. Still, the couple managed to sort things out, and they even went on a romantic getaway to Hawaii. However, there was another reason that the affair may have simmered down. After John, Chandrika's husband, saw some text messages from Gavin on her phone, he visited Gavin while he was still in rehab, and there he allegedly threatened Gavin, insisting that he stay away from Chandrika. John also viciously attacked his partner after he learned of the affair. It is very possible that this may have been the real reason that Gavin and Chandrika went their separate ways. However, about a year later, in 2010, Chandrika started emailing Gavin, and the two rekindled their love affair, at the very least by correspondence. Again, John found the emails and this time was increasingly furious. He emailed Gavin saying, "I'm going to get you, Gavin. Your wife is getting a copy of these emails. You're f***ed, you old prick." Gavin confessed about the emails to Lisa. He told her that John was a violent dealer and that he had been threatening him. Subsequently, they decided to change Gavin's phone number and email address, hoping this would be enough to put an end to this whole thing, but probably knowing that it wasn't. On December the 7th, 2010, Lisa tried to take control of the situation. She drove to John and Chandrika's home, and disturbingly, she did it with her oldest son Evan and her youngest son Austin. Then she sent the boys to ask John to back off, so that they could try to keep their family intact. The boys knocked on the door and John answered. According to Chandrika, she never saw them because they stayed at the door, but she could hear them talking and crying from inside. The boys apologized on behalf of their family, and Austin was heard saying, "I'm only in 8th grade. I'm too young to lose my dad." Lisa's controversial, insanely risky plan seemed to work. Although John told the boys that he had been having their father followed, and that he knew where the family lived, worked, and went to school, he also told them that by coming there, they had saved their father's life. John then added that so long as Gavin kept away from Chandrika, he would leave Gavin alone. For about 2 years, Gavin and Chandrika ceased communication, and they continued to live their separate lives. However, in 2012, Chandrika found out that John was having an affair with an 18-year-old high school girl. She found text messages on John's phone that read, "I don't want to come off as that guy, you know, the older perv or something." Another message read, "I like you because of you, not your age," along with many others. As a result, the couple separated, but they continued living in the same house due to financial reasons. Around the same time, Lisa discovered that Gavin was not only back in communication with Chandrika, but that he had also been seeing another woman from rehab named Melanie. At this point, Lisa was understandably devastated. She'd always believed that she was the love of Gavin's life, but still, Gavin decided to leave the family. He went to stay with a friend and continued on with seeing Chandrika. It's unclear whether he was still seeing Melanie or for how long their relationship went on, but either way, the damage was done. In April of that year, when Gavin picked Chandrika up while she was walking her dog, John was following her, and when he saw her get into Gavin's car, he started yelling and running towards them. However, on this occasion, Gavin was able to drive off before John reached them. Then on the evening of May the 1st at around 10 p.m, Gavin called Chandrika and asked her to meet. She agreed and told him to meet her at a parking lot, somewhere that she knew would be private. Chandrika was still living with John, as well as with her grandmother, and so the couple needed to meet in secret, even though they were both now officially separated. Chandrika left the house and told both John and her grandmother's caretaker that she was leaving. John told her that if she left, he would have someone to follow her. But Chandrika was no longer taking orders from her husband, partly because he was also having an affair. She ignored him and left the house at around 11 p.m. She arrived at the parking lot to find Gavin waiting for her in his black Mercedes. She left her phone in her car, an Audi, and then got into Gavin's car. What she did not know was that John had activated a tracking service on her phone, so he knew exactly where she was. John then arrived at the parking lot. He was driving Chandrika's grandmother's car, a gold Mazda. He found his ex-partner and Gavin in a compromising position. According to Chandrika's testimony, John began beating Gavin with his fists, while she yelled and begged for him to stop. It was not until Chandrika mentioned that John would go to jail that he stopped, but then turned his anger towards her. Chandrika managed to escape from the Mercedes. She got into her own car and quickly drove home. She closed the front door, grabbed a sharp implement, and then told her grandmother's caregiver that John was going to end her. John arrived home and was allegedly now in a calmer state, but he was covered in a thick red liquid. He told Chandrika that she needed to drive him back to the parking lot because Gavin needed to be taken to the hospital. The next day, Gavin was meant to pick his sons up from school, but the father never arrived. Word got back to Lisa and she immediately contacted the police. Despite their marital problems, Lisa knew that Gavin was devoted to their sons, and he just would not miss a pickup. The police dismissed Lisa's concerns though, and despite the family's best efforts, Gavin's disappearance would remain shrouded in mystery for 10 months. In early 2013, Gavin's black Mercedes was discovered in a police bust in a storage unit that belonged to none other than John Creech. The car was covered in both Gavin and John's DNA, and this included some of Gavin's vital fluids. Lisa and her family were broken, especially because they'd suspected foul play from the outset. Lisa was quoted as saying, "My sons and I are devastated, and this has been the hardest 10.5 months of our life, being without him." John was named the prime suspect in the investigation. He was already in prison serving an 8-year illicit substance charge, allegedly on the night of Gavin's demise. When Chandrika drove John back to the parking lot, she waited for him a few blocks away because she could not bear to see Gavin in whatever state he might be in after the attack. From there, whilst it is unclear whether Gavin was no longer alive at this point, at the time he arrived back, John called a friend and claimed that they needed to talk. When John arrived at his friend's house, he was in Gavin's Mercedes wearing a white tank top, a top that he had turned inside out as it was covered in red vital fluids. They then drove to the friend's parents' house where John began cleaning the inside of the car. He then called a second friend and subsequently stored the Mercedes at his house for around a month. This friend stated that he knew there was a body in the trunk at that time. After John told Chandrika that Gavin had died, they burned their clothes from the night of the incident in the fireplace. Chandrika claimed that she was afraid, and that when she told John to call the police, he threatened her. Finally, John moved the car to a storage unit, one that was rented for him by Chandrika's grandmother's caretaker. The caretaker admitted that she knew that John needed a place to hide Gavin's car, and that the reason was that he had ended his life on that night. For 2 years, 4 accomplices and John Creech were the only people who knew exactly what had happened to Gavin Smith, all while his family reeled in agony. Yet another year later on October the 26th, 2014, a group of hikers finally stumbled upon Gavin's remains. They were buried in a shallow grave in the Angeles National Forest. While the family finally had closure, John was only charged in 2017. He was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 11 years in prison. After the verdict, Lisa collapsed, heartbroken, as a jury stated that he wholeheartedly believed that John did not intend to kill Gavin on that night. According to testimony from the trial, several accomplices, including Chandrika, were given immunity for testifying against John Creech and for helping to piece together the events of that evening. Please do let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Hit like if you appreciate what I'm doing here, and also make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss these daily uploads. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.